Welcome to Human Resources for Small Business, where we discuss HR best practice, hot topics in HR strategy, and employment law changes that affect business. I'm your host, Brandon Laws of Xenium HR. Our website is www.xeniumhr.com, where you can follow us, read articles, watch videos, or contact us. Thank you for listening. Today is July 19th, and I'm here with Richard Coley, the CEO of CFS Consulting Group. Richard has 18 years of experience of driving lean projects from the conception of lean transformation to full, successful implementation. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
So, Richard, we actually had the pleasure of having you do a presentation for Xenium here at our facility this morning, and kind of blown away by the lean topic, which is our topic for today. So I'm going to first start off by asking you how you would describe the lean management system and really what that means to a business.
Well, we started calling it lean management systems because of Lean Six Sigma. And a lot of times when you hear lean, people automatically say, oh, Lean Six Sigma. And I kind of wanted people to understand that Lean Six Sigma was another tool within the toolbox of Lean. It's a big tool, but it's a whole management system. It's a system of tons of different types of tools. Some of the key tools might be 5S or Kaizen, Lean Six Sigma, and so many different other things. And so we call it Lean Management Systems because it's an actual system for your entire organization and not just for one piece of it.
Mm-hmm. And you have obviously 18 years of experience in driving the lean projects. Where did you really get that experience from? And then just kind of walk me through today how you became an expert in the lean.
Good question. To shorten up the 18 years, I started off as an industrial engineer with a company, and that's actually started, I guess, from college as an intern. Working with the automotive industry, and I was taught some of these tools and methodologies. Graduating from college, I was an industrial engineer for another car manufacturer, learned more of it. And then I transferred to some other companies that were actually using the Shingijutsu Japanese consulting group, that were the Japanese consultants who actually helped start this program at Toyota in the mid 1900s, about 1940, 1945. So I had the blessing, the pleasure to be mentored and taught by these guys, and they really gave me a wealth of knowledge. And from there, I started moving into operations and ended up managing 2 different manufacturing facilities, implementing the lean process. And so everything I'll talk to people about are from my experiences. Mm-hmm. It talks about my failures. It talks about my successes, the wins, the good, the bad, the ugly. And that is the one reason why I, started working with different clients, just so I could help them understand how to implement the lean to avoid some of the failures that a lot of people see when they implement lean, and which is why we call it the lean management system.
One thing I'll say before we kind of dive into the rest of the questions is, during your presentation, you really outlined the fact that you walk your talk. You, in one of your case studies, you mentioned that you threw up basically your performance review in front of everybody because you wanted to communicate what you're trying to get to. But I just wanted to just make that point that you walk your talk. So everything that you describe in this, you've done yourself and implemented for other companies.
Yes, everything. There is. I tell people, when you go through one of my trainings, my presentations, anything I work with you're having real life experience, not somebody who read a book, but somebody who actually lived it and had to work through the trenches and make things happen. So I understand what makes the lean fail, and I also understand what makes it successful.
In working with, I imagine, small, medium-sized companies are primarily your target market, maybe some large companies as well.
Yes.
What contacts are you usually working with? So most of our listeners are HR people as well as business leaders, so that could be CEOs, business owners, and all that. Who is usually the one that would want to reach out to you and start implementing lean and kind of get that consulting?
Well, it's in different industries. It's definitely somebody in a leadership position, a GM, a VP, somebody in the C-suite, CEOs. Those and some HR leaders reach out because the thing about lean, it does rely on the leadership, and you normally need that leadership to help introduce it, to help paint the picture, to help bring it into the organization. And so those are normally my first contacts are at that level, which I think is great because you get a chance from the beginning to understand the philosophy and the visions, and you also understand, where to best help that organization grow and achieve the objectives that they are looking at.
So switching gears, I wanted to ask, so in your presentation you compared lean tools within a toolbox. Can you elaborate on what that actually means?
Well, I just use, for one, I'm very visual, and so I always try to come up with a visual that pretty much is universal. I mean, everybody's seen a toolbox. Everybody understands that, there's more than a hammer in a toolbox, and if you don't use a hammer for every job. And so when I've used that analogy of a toolbox so people understand that the lean tools are just like the tools in the toolbox. You might have 30 different projects that you have at your house during a year, and you're not using a hammer for everything. And so you don't use like Lean Six Sigma for everything. You don't use 5S for everything. You don't use Kaizen. It's so many different tools. You may not use you'll use different tools for different opportunities. And I use a toolbox to help get people just to visualize, okay, they're really just tools. And that's why.
Well, you put it in simple terms for people to understand, so I can respect that for sure. What do you consider the vital sections of that toolbox? I think you mentioned the 5S's and all that, so maybe you can just dive into that a little bit.
Well, when I try to break down the toolbox, instead of, because there's countless lean tools that are used, problem-solving tools, all type of tools that are spin-off of other key tools, but I try to start everybody off with 5S. 5S is just a system for organization and standardization, and that is pretty much the foundation that you use on any organization to lay the foundation. Once that foundation is laid and things are organized and standardized, it's a lot easier to start pulling other tools. Another key tool I use is called Kaizen. And Kaizen is defined, it was defined to me from the Japanese consultants I work with. The Kai is to break apart, dissect. The Zen, bring together with peace and harmony. The peace and harmony is the most overlooked part of a Kaizen. Kaizen is a 3 to 4 day power-packed event. You focus on one thing to improve it. But if you leave the area and people are upset, frustrated, there's not peace and harmony, you did not accomplish it. So always remember that piece. And then the Lean Six Sigma, which uses a lot of the 5S and Kaizen, but a lot of other data tools to help define the problem. So with those three key compartments, within those compartments, there are so many different tools you can use that any organization applying any one of those will see dramatic results. And those, for me, those are the three that I focus on when I work with different clients. And
so just for the listeners to understand, I don't know if you mentioned what the 5S's actually stand for and then how a company could apply that. Could you just dive into that real quick?
Well, the 5S are 5 words beginning with the letter S. They're actually 5 Japanese words that we translated to English or American words, and they break down to the first S is sort, second S is straighten, the third S is shine, the fourth S is standardize, and the fifth S is sustain. A lot of people look at it like it's a cleanup, but the fourth and fifth S makes it the system, because you standardize it and then you sustain it. They wouldn't have created it if it was just a cleanup, because we've been cleaning up since the dawn of time. So it is not a cleanup, it's actually a system for organization and standardization.
I want to bring up the fact that in the presentation that you just gave, we did an activity, a really fun one actually, where you had on the first page was numbers all over the place, and there's obviously no order to it. But what did you ask everybody? You asked everybody to draw a line from 1 to 2 to 3, and basically you had defined it, right?
Yes.
Then the next page, they were in rows and columns, but the numbers still weren't in order. Actually, and 1 through 5 was in order at the very top, and then you had to search for 6 and 7, and they were all over the place. And then what happened on that last one?
Well, I use that example. It's a very simple example. The first page is very disorganized. And, I give everybody 2 minutes to find 1 through 50, draw a line 1 through 50. Most people find, between 18 to 23 on the first page. The second page is more organized, but not fully organized. But most people pretty much double the amount that they find. And most people find in the 40s, somewhere between 40 and 44. And so I show that little example that just a little bit of organization and standardization, you can improve your productivity. Now the final page is 1 through 100, and once people look at that, it's like, oh, okay, I can find any number because it's fully organized. And then we talk about how our brains are already programmed to function in an organized fashion. So if somebody gives you a sheet of paper 1 through 100, if somebody says find me 88, you'll look lower to the page. If somebody says find me 10, you'll look higher on the page. And if somebody says find me 50, you'll look, so your brain automatically knows where to look. The first 2 pages, your brain didn't know where to look. Your brain can still figure it out, but you forced your brain to start, really thinking and searching. And if you're doing that every day, you're actually are asking people to use their brain for wasteful things instead of useful things.
What type of model do you use when actually applying lean?
Oh, the model that we use, we created a model that really focuses on 3 key components, with the 4th component. The first component is people. Every organization has people, and every organization, getting people to focus on the same objective, it's a lot of energy. Every organization has processes. Every organization has performance, some kind of performance they want to see. And then all of that is connected to the customer. Now the customer is internal and external. And a lot of times people don't see the customer, internal customer, they see it as another employee. And so you may not listen as closely if somebody says, hey, can you start sending this to me? I need this to receive this way. And because they're an employee, you're like, okay, whatever. But if the outside customer asks you the same question, you'll be more apt to listen. And so if you look at the internal just as you would look at the external, you would pretty much start to reduce a lot of the internal noise, reduce a lot of the silos that are built internally, and all you're now just really hearing the customer's voice. You can clearly hear what the customer is saying, this is what I want. And I would say like Apple has done a pretty good job with hearing the customer and giving the customer what they want.
What I really hear you saying out of all of these, the models, people would be the hardest to kind of get your arms around. One of the examples that you gave, and is actually an exercise, was the pig example. So kind of walk the listeners through that and what you did for the group, and I thought it was fascinating.
Well, I use this pig exercise. I ask everybody in the room to draw a picture of a pig. And so everybody does that. They do exactly what I asked them. Once they post the pigs, everybody's pig looks a little different or very different. And so I asked the question, does anybody know why the pigs look different? And somebody always says, because we're individuals or we think differently. And that's exactly right. And so nobody in the room did anything wrong. I did something wrong. I just asked them to draw a pig. I did not give them a lot of direct information, like how to draw the pig. They just draw the face of the pig, draw the eyes like this. Then pretty much all the pictures would have looked the same. That's the standardization piece of it. And that's where we work with leadership to have them understand the type of communication that you are giving people may not be interpreted as you want. And so it works with everybody saying, hey, I said draw a pig, and everybody did what I asked them. So you have to be very clear on your communications and helping standardize things. Well, all of a sudden get everybody on the same page and move a lot faster.
Is this what you refer to as paint the picture? And in your presentation, that's what you mentioned. So this means that leadership really needs to be detailed in what kind of instructions they're giving, whether it's processes or just a project or a task.
Yes, I mean you know a lot of times, you know, in leadership roles we have looked at things from such deep levels that when we start to communicate, we forget that the people we're communicating to, this is their first time hearing it. We may have taken 6 months to look at all this, and then we present it, and what we're thinking is getting across is being lost. And so it's really understanding what communication is going out to drive the type of actions that will benefit the group or the organization. And that's what the PIG exercise really tries to drive home.
And towards the end of the presentation, you did another exercise along the same lines of the PIG. Tell us how that went.
Well, I did another exercise that I gave everybody a frame, and they had to put a puzzle together. Well, you know, everybody's looking at it. It was, I think, about 10 different groups out. Everybody's puzzle was looking a little different. And about 2 or 3 minutes in, somebody's, you know, picked their head up and said, "Hey, would it help if we could see a picture of it?" And so I said, "Bingo!" I said, "Did anybody learn anything from the PIG exercise?" It was almost the same scenario. I just said put the puzzle together, but every group was putting it together differently. It wasn't saying they were doing it wrong. They were doing it saying, "Hey, you said put the puzzle together." When I put the picture up, it took 2 groups, and within 32 seconds, they had the puzzle put together. Now, we had taken over 3 minutes, and nobody had put the puzzle together, and all the puzzles looked different. And in 32 seconds, we had all the puzzles looking the same, and with less than a minute, every group had the puzzle completed. So just in that little bit of information, we painted a picture where people can see and say, "Oh, okay." And then within that picture, you could always make improvements, but a lot of times I think we fail by just giving a blank wall and say, "I want everybody to improve." And so that means that everybody takes from their vantage point what that means. And that is where leadership needs to help paint that picture. And that's all.
So here's a blank canvas. Go paint something.
Yeah.
Well, to somebody who follows instructions, and they really need some guidance on that. What I thought was interesting with that exercise you did was that the final picture you put on the wall, where we were able to now put together the puzzle, that wasn't the only way you could do it. There were several other ways, but the point was that leadership needs to define what their right way of doing things is, and then to communicate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really, leadership really needs to be clear on their objectives. And then once everybody's clear on the objectives, then you could ask within that, well, how can we improve this? And then that's where all the communication, all the dynamic and the energy will start with, "Oh, well, what if we took this piece and moved it here? What if we did this? I think this would improve it." But you have everybody on the same page. And so very quickly I was able to get, you know, over 30 people all focused on the same picture. Now it's easier for me to ask that group, "Well, how would you improve this?" Instead of me asking each individual, "Well, how would you improve yours? How would you improve yours?" And you still end up with 10 different puzzles.
This ends part 1 of our conversation with Richard Coley. Check back soon for part 2. This podcast is produced by Xenium Resources, Inc., all rights reserved. For information on guests or for interview requests, please visit www.xeniumhr.com or email info@xeniumhr.com. Everything on this show should be considered educational and informational only, and not personal advice. Please consult with the appropriate tax, legal, or business professional for individualized advice.